You cannot walk into a passport application center in Ghana and tell them you're Hausa, yet expect them to screen and approve your passport application, because Hausa is not recognized as an indigenous Ghanaian language. Yet, walk through the streets of Nima, Sabon Zongo, Madina, Techiman, Kumasi, Tamale, and parts of Kaswa, and you hear Hausa everywhere. So how did a language that isn't officially Ghanaian become one of the most spoken languages in Ghana? Well, the answer begins long before Ghana even became Ghana. Because centuries ago, before colonial borders sliced Africa into separate countries, Hausa traders from areas that are now northern Nigeria and Niger were already crossing the Sahel. They moved with salt, leather, textiles, kola nuts, cattle, and Islamic scholarship, and wherever trade went, language followed. So the Hausa people became known across West Africa as merchants, travelers, and Islamic teachers. As they moved through trade routes stretching from Kano to Salaga and beyond, Hausa slowly became the language of commerce and communication between people of different ethnic groups. Think about that for a second. Before English became the language of business in Ghana, Hausa already was. Then came colonialism. The British arrived and drew borders on maps, dividing people who had moved across West Africa freely for generations. Suddenly, people who had always traded and traveled together were now classified as foreigners, but the movement never stopped. Many Hausa-speaking migrants settled permanently in Ghana, especially in communities that would later become known as Zongos. Now, the word Zongo actually comes from a Hausa word meaning traveler's camp or stopping place. These were originally temporary settlements for traders and migrants passing through towns. But over time, those temporary settlements became permanent communities. Families were raised there, mosques were built, businesses flourished, and cultures mixed. Today, Zongos are some of the most culturally vibrant communities in Ghana. They are home not just to Hausas, but to people of different northern ethnic groups and West African backgrounds. And through all of this, Hausa survived as the common language that connected everybody. That is why today, someone from Ghana who is not ethnically Hausa can still speak fluent Hausa. In fact, many people who were born and raised in Ghana have never stepped foot in Nigeria or Niger, yet Hausa is the first language that they learned at home. That's why today in Ghana, you hear Hausa at the market, you hear it at bus stations, you hear it on radio and TV, you even hear it at Islamic schools, and politicians even speak or campaign in Hausa during elections because they know how influential and widespread the language has become. And yet, officially, Hausa remains in a strange position, deeply influential, wildly spoken, but still unofficial. And I think that says something bigger about Africa itself. Because African identity has never been as simple as the borders we inherited. Languages travel, cultures mix, communities evolve. So no, you cannot walk into a passport application center and say your language or tribe is Hausa. But you also cannot tell the story of modern Ghana without talking about the Hausa language and the Zongo communities that helped shape its music, markets, religion, politics, and street culture. So in many ways, Hausa in Ghana is proof that Africa has always been more connected than the borders suggest. And as usual, you're welcome, or as we say in Hausa, Sanu da zuwa.